Live from New Delhi, you're watching DD India Newshour, India's voice to the world. I'm Mark Lynn. Namaskar. Coming up in the next... Prime Minister Narendra Modi meets Canada's Prime Minister Carney in Delhi. They advance the India-Canada strategic partnership. India and Canada increase engagement across all sectors with MOUs on critical minerals, terms of reference for comprehensive economic partnership, among other things. Day 3 of the Iran-US war escalates, with Iran continuing to strike Gulf capitals. Israel-Hezbollah clash also intensifies. Iran Security Chief Ali Larijani rules out talks with the US amid escalating strikes. Afghanistan strikes major Pakistani bases in retaliation for cross-border strikes. Prime Minister Narendra Modi on Monday held talks with his Canadian counterpart Mark Carney in New Delhi, and both leaders reviewed the progress achieved till date across diverse areas of the India-Canada strategic partnership, building on their earlier meetings in Kanaskis in June of 2025 and Johannesburg in November of 2025. The leaders also took stock of ongoing cooperation in key pillars including trade and investment, energy, critical minerals, agriculture, education, research and innovation, and people-to-people ties. They also exchanged views on regional and global developments. And India and Canada have increased engagement across all sectors with MOUs on critical minerals, terms of reference for comprehensive economic partnership. Canadian Foreign Minister Anita Anand and the External Affairs Minister of India Jai Shankar, they exchanged documents of MOUs on promoting the use of renewable energy and cultural cooperation. Canada announced its decision to join the International Solar Alliance and also Global Biofuel Alliance, further aligning with India's clean energy initiatives. In civil nuclear cooperation, the leaders said that they would also explore collaboration on small modular reactors and advanced reactor technologies. On the current situation in West Asia, Narendra Modi, Prime Minister of India, said that India has consistently called for maintaining peace and stability.
विश्व में चल रहे अनेक तनावों को लेकर भारत की सोच स्पष्ट ही है। हमने सदैव शांति और स्थिरता बनाए रखने का आह्वान किया है, और जब दो लोकतंत्र साथ खड़े होते हैं तो शांति की आवाज और भी सशक्त हो जाती है। पश्चिम एशिया की वर्तमान स्थिति हमारे लिए गहरी चिंता का विषय है। भारत डायलॉग और डिप्लोमेसी के माध्यम से सभी विवादों का समाधान का समर्थन करता है। इस क्षेत्र में मौजूद सभी भारतीय नागरिकों की सुरक्षा के लिए हम सभी देशों के साथ मिलकर काम करते रहेंगे। डिफेंस इंडस्ट्रीज, मैरीटाइम डोमेन अवेयरनेस और मिलिट्री एक्सचेंजेस बढ़ाने पर काम करेंगे। इसी उद्देश्य से आज हमने इंडिया कनाडा डिफेंस डायलॉग की स्थापना करने का निर्णय लिया है।
And addressing the press, the Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney hailed Prime Minister Modi's leadership, saying that in the past decade, India has become the fastest growing economy in the world.
In the last decade, under your leadership, Prime Minister, India has become the fastest growing economy in the world. Per capita incomes in this country have risen at a pace never seen in history, seldom in human history. The most ambitious projects in clean energy, in the digital economy, in biofuels, in the next generation of artificial intelligence talent are all here in India. Prime Minister, Canada shares such ambition and your sense of purpose.
Ahead of the meeting with Prime Minister Modi, India's External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar called on the visiting dignitary in New Delhi this morning, and Jaishankar appreciated Prime Minister Carney's commitment towards charting a forward-looking partnership. And to put this visit into context, we have with us Ajay Bisaria, former Indian High Commissioner to Canada. Thank you very much, Mr. Bisaria, for being with us. How do regional and global geopolitics shape the strategic value of this relationship at the current time, from New Delhi's point of view?
Well, the geopolitics is important, but this is also bilaterally an important relationship. There has been a Trump factor at play in the relationship that has accelerated matters, that has accelerated the coming together. But we also have a very pragmatic leadership now in Canada. So I think this visit, as the Canadian PM himself said, there has been more engagement between India and Canada in the last 1 year than we've seen in any of the last 20 years. So we are moving in a forward-looking way, and that was evident from the statements by the two prime ministers today, into a focused economic partnership between the fastest growing G20 economy in the world, which is India, and Canada, which is a G7 country, but also an energy and agriculture superpower. So I think that remained the focus of the outcomes.
You mentioned energy and agriculture superpower. How significant is the India-Canada, cooperation in terms of critical minerals, which is the future-looking direction of most relationships?
Absolutely. The strategic energy partnership that was declared today, that is a new forward-looking area of cooperation. Critical minerals is important because Canada is a huge repository of not just critical minerals themselves, but also processing technologies. And we also have in place Canada, India, Australia trilateral mechanism which can take forward this partnership. So the strategic energy partnership will have a critical minerals element, an LNG element, a clean energy element, and of course, the headline is a uranium element, which is a mega deal that was signed today to take forward the relationship in the civil nuclear sector.
So, when the two sides, Ambassador Bisaria, also have sort of made the framework, they've concluded to conclude a comprehensive economic partnership agreement by the end of the year. So what kind of hurdles do you think would come up in this negotiation?
Well, I think the hurdles are being rapidly cleared. This is an agreement which we've been seeing the conversation on this going on since 2010. Then we gave it up for a while because of the political turbulence in the relationship. And then we discussed an interim agreement. But now an accelerated CEPA comprehensive agreement is on the table again. And I see this concluding by this year as both the sides are keen to do that. And, both sides now have more experience given the turbulence of the last 1 year of having diversifying relationships, diversifying trade relationships, fixing or doing agreements with the EU and other geographies. So I don't see too many hurdles to this happening. There will be the usual set of challenges, but I think both have the experience to overcome them and secure an agreement by the end of the year.
And indeed, and the purpose of that agreement would be to double bilateral trade over the next few years, decade, I think.
Next 5 years, yes.
Next 5 years, yeah.
It talks about increasing trade to 50 billion US dollars or 70 billion Canadian dollars by 2030. I think it's very achievable. The economic relationship is already very strong. Canada invests more than $110 billion in India already. Canadian pension funds command $2 trillion of assets,
Right.
and a large amount is invested in India. So the idea is to, accelerate and building on what already exists and build back a better relationship after the trouble of the last 2 or 3 years.
Indeed, and you did mention, of course, that Canada's role as a uranium supplier, this is over the next 10 years, I suppose, and is going to complement India's renewables push. To what extent, is this, is this going to be a game changer over the next 10 years?
I think this is an important part of the partnership. And the good news is that both sides are not looking backwards, but just looking forward. Today, the Canadian Prime Minister mentioned Viksit Bharat, accompanied by Canada Strong, similar objective. And the whole idea is to have a vision for the relationship for the next couple of decades. And that would mean looking at futuristic areas of cooperation. That includes, of course, this 10-year uranium deal, but also talking of a strategic energy partnership, a strategic innovation partnership in AI and innovation and so on. So it's a very forward-looking agenda, as it must be, and I think both sides have reason to be very satisfied by these outcomes.
And has this visit of the Canadian Prime Minister renewed the strategic partnership in the sense that what kind of role will people-to-people ties play in taking it forward? Because there's a huge, sizable Indian people of Indian origin there, which I think the Canadian Prime Minister also referred to it, about 2 million people, yeah.
Yes, indeed. In fact, there are 2 million people of Canadian heritage carrying Canadian passports, of Indian heritage carrying Canadian passports, as also 1 million more who may be permanent residents and others carrying Indian passports.
Right.
So really, in a country of 38 million, you have 3 million Indian heritage people contributing enormously to Canada's economy, and that is a strong people-to-people ballast that this relationship gets. And I think there was a conversation, there is a strategic partnership in place between the two countries, at least on paper, since 2015.
Yes.
But the potential was not realized because the previous government in Canada was looking at the relationship through different prisms of security and of diaspora. But now we have a leadership in Canada that is looking at the relationship as a strong economic partnership that has to be built back and built for the future. And I think that is what this visit would have achieved.
Prime Minister also condemned terrorism in all its forms and manifestations, and we understand that the elements that within Canada who sort of foster this anti-India sentiment still exist. To what extent, do you feel that this is an irritant in the relationship?
Well, I think this is a structural irritant in the relationship. Some anti-India voices, some separatist voices within Canada. This has been around for the last 4 decades, since the bombing of Kanishka in 1985. And this won't easily go away. But the good news is that at the level of the prime ministers, this is not an issue that was discussed in the public domain. It is an issue that the security professionals are now discussing at the NSA level and other levels. So the whole idea is to not allow this irritant to become a factor in the political relationship, but to box it in a security mechanism which the professionals like the national security advisors would handle. So I think that is a signifier of the maturity of the relationship, which is forward-looking and not willing to be pulled down by security irritants.
We leave it there. Thank you very much, Ambassador Ajay Basaria, for putting this visit into context for us. The ongoing visit of the Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney to New Delhi, and we'll keep giving you updates on the visit. Now, also in New Delhi is Rwanda's Foreign Affairs and International Cooperation Minister Olivier Nduhungirehe. And he's arrived this morning on an official visit. And at the airport, the visiting dignitary was received by the Joint Secretary for East and Southern Africa at the India Ministry of External Affairs. And during this visit, the Rwandan Foreign Minister is going to be attending the 11th Raisina Dialogue and also the 2nd India-Rwanda Joint Commission meeting. And still to come here on DD India Newshour. We'll also discuss the evolving situation in Iran and Afghanistan. Geopolitics and trade deals. Economic challenges amid development. Hard work and the path to prosperity. It's the economy, always. Between walkers, money is what money does and says. Supply creates its own demand. Between the bulls pulls and bears tears. When supply chains globalization and India rises to the podium. We'll get you centered with the economic brief at 8 p.m. every Thursday on DD India.
Jharkhand will mesmerize you with majestic nature, rich heritage and colorful culture.
Hello. Johar. It fits perfectly.
Thank you.
Full workout हो गया.
Ready?
Postcards from Jharkhand on National Geographic.
You're watching DD India Newshour. I'm Mark Lynn. The conflict in West Asia is widening as the US, Israel and Iran continue to exchange strikes across multiple fronts. Israel and Hezbollah have been exchanging strikes. Israel on Monday said that they had launched offensive airstrikes against Hezbollah targets in Lebanon. Footage released by the Israeli army showed strikes on Hezbollah terrorists in Lebanon, quote unquote, in an offensive campaign against them. In Kuwait, black smoke was seen rising from the US Embassy. Kuwait's defense ministry said that several American warplanes crashed in Kuwait and confirmed that all the crew members survived. Now, in fact, this source said that the authorities immediately initiated search and rescue operations, evacuating the crews and transporting them to a hospital for medical evacuation and treatment, evaluation and treatment. So the minister confirmed that the condition of this is stable. Israel said that it is striking at the heart of Tehran and is launching attacks on Lebanon after the militant group Hezbollah said that it had launched rockets and drones at Israel. The Israeli military told residents of about 50 towns and villages in Lebanon to evacuate, and they warned of further strikes against Hezbollah militants. Reacting to these developments, the Lebanese Prime Minister Naval has, in fact, his government has pushed the Hezbollah's disarmament. They called Monday's rocket fire irresponsible. On social media, he said that such action endangers Lebanon's security and safety and gives Israel pretext to continue its attacks. Without naming Hezbollah, Salam also vowed to stop the perpetrators and protect the Lebanese people. Fresh strikes were heard across the Gulf as Tehran on Monday pressed into a third day of strikes, including on the cities of Dubai, Doha and Manama. Several loud blasts were heard in the Qatari and Bahraini capitals, as well as in the United Arab Emirates' most populous city. The United States and its Arab allies have condemned Iran for launching a wave of strikes on Gulf states hosting U.S. troops. In a joint statement with Bahrain, Jordan, Kuwait, Qatar, Saudi Arabia, and the United Arab Emirates, the State Department of the United States said that the targeting of civilians and of countries not engaged in hostilities is reckless and destabilizing behavior. Air raid sirens echoed across Israel, including Tel Aviv and Jerusalem early on Monday morning after the Israeli military reported missile launches from Iran. The escalation comes a day after Israel carried out fresh airstrikes on Tehran following the killing of Iran's Supreme Leader Ali Khamenei. In response, Iran launched multiple missile barrages, triggering alerts across the country, with residents seen rushing to shelters amid fears of further strikes. In a video statement, the U.S. President Donald Trump said that combat operations in Iran are continuing and would carry on until all of Washington's objectives are achieved. Trump confirmed in a video posted on Truth Social that 3 U.S. service members had been killed and said that there would likely be more casualties, vowing to avenge the deaths of Americans.
The United States and its partners have launched Operation Epic Fury, one of the largest, most complex, most overwhelming military offensives the world has ever seen. Nobody's seen anything like it. We have hit hundreds of targets in Iran, including Revolutionary Guard facilities, Iranian air defense systems. Combat operations continue at this time in full force, and they will continue until all of our objectives are achieved.
And as the conflict entered its third day on Monday, President Trump said that 48 Iranian leaders had been killed and that the U.S. military had started sinking Iran's navy, destroying 9 Iranian warships so far and going after the rest. Well, the U.S. Department of State has advised all Americans worldwide to exercise increased caution due to potential security risks. It has asked all its citizens to stay informed by monitoring local news for updates, avoid areas of active conflict, and use extra care when near military or security forces. It has also asked its citizens to enroll in the Smart Traveler Enrollment Program, STEP, to receive the latest security alerts. Ali Larijani, who is the powerful head of Tehran's Supreme National Security Council, on Monday stressed that Iran will not negotiate with the United States. In a post on social media platform, Larijani, he denied media reports that Iranian officials had sought to initiate talks with the Trump administration following a wave of U.S.-Israeli strikes on Iran over the weekend, which came after Tehran and Washington held nuclear negotiations. Earlier, Trump had claimed that Iran's new leadership wanted to talk to him and that he had agreed. And to break down what's happening in West Asia and the evolving situation, we have Major General Dhruv Katoch, retired Director of the India Foundation. Thank you very much, General Katoch. Now, how has Iran's retaliation, including these attacks on the Gulf states that hold U.S. assets, how is it reshaping the regional balance?
Well, I think the attacks by Iran on the Gulf states is the most significant factor of the war. That is something which the Iranians had claimed that they will do. They had made it very, very clear that all American assets in the Gulf are open to attack. And subsequently, after the killing of Khamenei, they had also made it clear that there are no further red lines, which means that they will not necessarily restrict themselves to military targets. that means they're open to other targets also. That's the way I have actually understood it. Now, I believe because the Iranians' capacity is limited, they can only attack Israel. They cannot attack the United States, the mainland at least. I think what they're trying to do by attacking the Gulf states is to force the Gulf states to put pressure on the Americans to stop the war. That appears to be one of the motives. Number two, it could also be to embolden or rather to give support to their own public that, listen, we are strong and we will be able to fight. And I think it is something like to raise the morale of their own people. So these are the two major objectives which I see coming out of the Iranian attacks. They have one very basic disadvantage as of now. One, I don't see any any support from any country for the Iranians as of now. Okay. Two countries have given support, the two of the major powers, that is Russia and China. But that support appears to be basically on words. I don't see any material support coming to Iran from anywhere. True. It is not going to come from the Gulf countries. It is not going to come from any of the Western European countries. And I don't think any of the Asian countries are going to give them support either. So True. Iran, in a sense, is totally isolated. That is one. Number two, I see a battle developing within Iran. If that takes place, the civil society, a very large segment of the civil society was not with the Ayatollah regime. I don't think they have a leadership as of now to support. So the leadership as of now remains with the Ayatollah or his or the people who were loyal to him, especially the Revolutionary Guards. And that is going to be the challenge, the Revolutionary Guards on one side and the people on the other. How that turns out, we will see in the next few weeks.
General Katoch, also much of the rationale for this isolation of Iran is related to the refusal of the world to allow Iran to have nuclear weapons and the concern that they do. So, but you know, how long is this going to play out in sustaining this escalating conflict? Because nobody really knows the exact position.
You know, nuclear weapons has been a very sore point as far as Israel was concerned. Right from Ayatollah Khomeini's time till now, the Iranian leadership, I'm not talking about any common person, the top leadership has consistently stated that they will wipe Israel out from the face of the earth. And in my own conversations with some of the former ambassadors of Israel, they have made it very clear that we take that threat very seriously. Now, that is why the nuclear weapons become very important, because if Iran has a nuclear weapon and they already have a delivery means, as we have seen, they have the missiles to target Israel. If that target is attached to the nuclear weapon, then Israel will be obliterated. So from the Israeli point of view, it is an existential crisis. They will not permit it to happen, and they will do whatever they can to prevent Iran getting a nuclear weapon. Now, that was really what the deal was, what President Trump was trying to make a deal, but it went beyond that. They wanted to also stop their ballistic missile coverage and stop the support which Iran is giving to the terrorist groups. I don't know how that is going to play out, but by the end of it all, I think Iran is going to be weakened tremendously, and they will lose their capacity as the days goes by to replenish the ammunition which they are expending.
Indeed.
So every day by day, they will get weaker. This is the time window which Iran has to create disturbance in the Arab world, in the Gulf, so that peace comes about through other means. But we'll have to see as to how it plays out in the time to come.
And General Katoch, also, to what extent has the assassination of Khamenei and the subsequent strikes also deepened Iran's reliance on proxies? We know that Hezbollah is now engaged with Israel. And, the Houthis and all these others who Israel has, I beg your pardon, whom Iran has supported over the years. Will they come back to help them now?
No, I'm not sure as to how how these terrorist groups can help Iran, because Iran was the group which was helping them. It was working the other way around. All the support to those groups in terms of ammunition and finances was coming from Iran. Now Iran is under strike. I think the maximum help which Hezbollah and Hamas and the Houthis can give is, with the weapons they have currently, they can actually engage some of the American targets. But beyond that, I don't see any major role being played by those terrorist groups in support of Iran at this point of time.
General Katoch, how has the outbreak of open war also between Pakistan and Afghanistan altered the security calculus in South Asia?
I think that is going to be a very significant development. Mark, very frankly, when this war broke out between Afghanistan and Pakistan, I had a feeling that there were external powers also involved in it. There was something amiss. And that something amiss, the way I look at it now, is that the Americans wanted bases in Pakistan. And with this war, I think they will get those bases. And the basic aim is going to be to target Iran. That appears to be the larger motive. Now, with the Pakistan-Afghan conflict going on, I don't think Pakistan is in a position to win this war. In fact, they are going to find themselves in a very, very sorry state of affairs, because they are not in the irregular type of warfare which is being conducted. They cannot hold on. In a conventional war, yes, Pakistan will beat Afghanistan and they will get victory. But it's not going to be a conventional war. This is going to be fought over the Durand Line or on those mountain ranges. And there, over the 1,000+ kilometers of border which they share with Afghanistan, they will have to protect each and every post. And that is going to be a very difficult job, especially because the Baloch will be after them, and the Tehrik-e-Taliban Pakistan in Khyber Pakhtunkhwa will also be targeting the Pakistani forces. The Pakistani army is going to be stretched to its limit. Their police forces are going to be stretched to the limit, and they will have a very, very difficult time unless they can politically resolve their problem. So there will be very challenging times ahead for Pakistan, but I don't think this particular war between Pakistan and Afghanistan will impact any other part of South Asia or West Asia, or also West Asia.
Okay, so, but you don't think that it's a serious enough concern for India to be watching the developing conflict between Pakistan and, and Afghanistan closely?
No, we should be watching it, but I don't think it's a matter of great concern. Today, the greatest concern for India is our energy resources, because if the Strait of Hormuz gets closed, and if there's already been an attack on the Aramco refinery by the Iranians. Now, those are the problems, because if the energy flows get delayed or they stop, the energy prices are going to rise exponentially. Today, we are getting petrol at 100 rupees a litre. If this war carries on for a month or 2 months or 3 months, it could very well rise to 150 to 200 rupees. The prices could double. And that will have a very serious effect on India's economy. That is why this war is one which we want to stop as early as possible. Mark.
We'll leave it there. Thank you very much, Major General Dhruv Katoch, retired Director, Indian Foundation, for breaking that down for us. Now, moving on to our next story. An overnight drone strike hit Bahrain's Royal Air Force Base in Akroti in Cyprus that caused limited damage with no casualties reported. The Cyprus President, Christodoulis, has in fact said that the Shahid-type unmanned aerial vehicle had crashed into the military facilities around midnight, and he further clarified that his country does not participate in any way and does not intend to be a part of any military operation.
We find ourselves in a region of particular geopolitical instability with a lot of challenges and problems, which is experiencing an unprecedented crisis. I want to be clear, our country is not participating in any way and does not intend to be part of any military operation. We remain committed to the humanitarian role we have served throughout this time, always as part of the solution and not the problem.
The attack followed a video message on social media where the UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer said that the US can use British bases for defensive strikes against Iran missiles, but made it clear that Britain is not directly involved in the strikes.
The United States has requested permission to use British bases for that specific and limited defensive purpose. We have taken the decision to accept this request. Our decision that the UK would not be involved with the strikes on Iran was deliberate. not least because we believe that the best way forward for the region and for the world is a negotiated settlement, one in which Iran agrees to give up any aspirations to develop a nuclear weapon.
France, Germany and the UK have agreed to work with the US and regional allies to address the situation of indiscriminate Iranian attacks on the countries in the region. The European nations in a joint statement expressed their appalled response to these attacks and have called for Iran to stop them immediately. They have also, in fact, pledged to take necessary and proportionate defensive measures to protect their own interests and those of their allies in the region. This includes enabling defense actions to destroy Iran's capability to fire missiles and drones at their source. And also, the leaders have confirmed their commitment to work closely with the United States and regional allies to address the situation. This agreement follows a series of missile and drone strikes by Iran and several Gulf countries, which have been described as indiscriminate and disproportionate. Besides, France is also making efforts. They're making efforts to ensure the safety of their citizens in the region, as well as their repatriation when the airspace reopens. President Macron held a meeting of the Defense and National Security Council in Paris on Sunday in this regard, and he called Iran's retaliatory strikes on other West Asian countries as disproportionate and indiscriminate, and he said that France was strengthening its defensive posture in the region. Meanwhile, in the United States, the Secretary of War, Pete Hegseth, will hold a press conference on Monday about the joint U.S.-Israeli military campaign against Iran, the first by a senior official of the Trump administration since the strikes began on Saturday. The press conference is to be held at 6:30 p.m. as per Indian Standard Time. Dan Kane, the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, will also take part. And further, the U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio will also go and brief leaders of the U.S. Senate and the House of Representatives at around 2100 hours GMT on Monday. The White House said that top U.S. officials, including Secretary of State Marco Rubio, will make the case to Congress for the attack on Iran, as Democrats and some Republicans question this rationale of these attacks. So, in fact, the White House spokesperson, who's Dylan Johnson, has said that apart from Rubio, the Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth, the CIA Director John Ratcliffe, and the Military Chief General Dan Kane will brief the full membership of both houses, both chambers of commerce, as they call it there, of both chambers of Congress, as they call it in that country, on Tuesday. The International Atomic Energy Agency will hold an extraordinary meeting on Iran on Monday in the wake of the US-Israeli strikes on the Islamic Republic aimed in part at Tehran's atomic program. The agency will hold a special session of the IAEA Board of Governors on matters related to military strikes this is of the United States and Israel against the territory of the Islamic Republic of Iran. Monday's emergency meeting will start an hour before a long-scheduled quarterly meeting of the board at which Iran's nuclear program was already on the agenda. Following the strikes, the IAEA said it was closely monitoring developments in the Middle East and urged restraint to avoid any nuclear safety risks to people in the region. Diplomats said that there was no indication Iranian nuclear facilities were struck on Sunday. Amid airspace closures due to Iran strikes, the safety of Indians stranded en masse at various airports across West Asia, as well as those living in Iran and Israel, remains India's key focus. To discuss the same, Prime Minister Narendra Modi on Sunday late in the evening held a cabinet committee on security meeting at his residence. The committee was briefed on the airstrikes in Iran on February 28 and the subsequent escalation, including attacks on several Gulf countries. So the Cabinet Committee on Security expressed serious concern over the safety and security of the large Indian expatriate community there in the region. The CCS also reviewed the difficulties faced by Indian travelers transiting the region and students also appearing for scheduled examinations at this current time, as well as the broader implications of regional security and economic and commercial activities. The CCS directed all concerned departments to take necessary and feasible measures to assist Indian nationals affected by the developments. It underscored the importance of an early cessation of hostilities and a return to dialogue and diplomacy. The Cabinet Committee on Security is the highest decision-making body on security and strategic matters in the country. Amid heightened tensions across West Asia and also the widespread concern in India about potential repercussions, the Ministry of Home Affairs has issued a high alert to Indian states. In a letter to the states, the ministry cautioned against possible violence in India in the wake of the Israel-US strikes against Iran. The letter was circulated on February 28, asking the states to identify pro-Iran radical preachers giving inflammatory sermons. Reportedly, officials in New Delhi said the situation is being closely watched, not only for its geopolitical impact, but also for the risk that global developments could be exploited by extremist elements to inflame local sentiments. Meanwhile, Prime Minister Narendra Modi spoke with UAE President Sheikh Mohammed bin Zayed Al Nahyan late on Sunday night. On social media, the Prime Minister said, and I quote, strongly condemned the attacks on the UAE and condoled the loss of lives in these attacks. India stands in solidarity with the UAE in these difficult times. Thanked him for taking care of the Indian community living in the UAE. We support de-escalation, regional peace, security and stability. Meanwhile, Prime Minister Modi also spoke with the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu in a telephonic conversation. The leaders discussed the ongoing regional situation and its implications. During the call, the Prime Minister Modi, conveyed India's concerns regarding the recent developments in the region, underscoring the safety and security of civilians as a top priority. He also reiterated India's firm stance on the urgent need for an immediate cessation of hostilities. Updates now on Afghanistan and Pakistan, and the Ministry of National Defense of the Islamic Emirate has stated that it had clarified that it has carried out airstrikes on major military installations in Pakistan, including the Noor Khan Air Base in Rawalpindi, describing the action as a response to Pakistani air raids on Afghan territory. In a post on X, the Ministry of National Defense of Afghanistan stated that the strikes include the Noor Khan Air Base in Rawalpindi, the 12th Brigade Base in Quetta, Balochistan, and the Koizai Camp in the Muhammad Agency in Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, along with other military sites housing key facilities and centers. Some more updates now from across the globe, and the FBI, the Federal Bureau of Investigation in the United States, is investigating a deadly late-night shooting at a bar in Austin, Texas, as a potential act of terrorism. Police said that 3 people were killed and another 14 injured when a male gunman opened fire from a vehicle in front of a bar in the city's busy 6th Street district. And what happened is that they've said that 3 of the wounded were in critical condition. They've added that the suspect was later killed in an exchange of fire with the police at a different downtown location. As per the Site Intelligence Group and Austin Police, the gunman, Ndiaga Diangni, is a U.S. citizen of Senegalese origin and had expressed pro-Iranian regime sentiment and hatred for Israel and U.S. leaders on social media since 2017. The shooting comes amid heightened security in many American cities following the launching of U.S. and Israeli airstrikes on Iran. And the Indian naval vessel Kondinya was ceremonially flagged off into the Mumbai harbour by the Minister of State for Defense, Sanjay Seth, on Monday. In fact, the ceremony marks the successful completion of its maiden overseas voyage in the Sultanate of Oman and her historic return passage across the Arabian Sea, reaffirming India's enduring maritime heritage and India-Oman linkages across the Indian Ocean. During her stay, the vessel was opened to visitors, serving as a floating symbol of maritime heritage and cultural diplomacy. The voyage significantly strengthened India-Oman linkages rooted in millennia of trade in spices, textiles and frankincense, and reinforced the shared seafaring traditions across the Arabian Sea. So this ancient ship was flagged into Mumbai, and the exhibition highlighted the Indian Navy's role not only as a maritime security provider, but also as a custodian of India's civilizational maritime legacy. President Draupadi Murmu on Monday attended the Empowered Women's Prosperous Delhi program in the national capital, New Delhi. The President launched several key schemes for women, including free LPG cylinders for Holi and Diwali for over 15 lakh families, the Saheli Pink Smart Card for free bus travel, the Delhi Lakhpati Bitiya scheme, and a direct benefit transfer of nearly 100 crore rupees to more than 40,000 girls under the Meri Punji Mera Adhikar scheme. Addressing the gathering, the President said that these initiatives will empower the sisters and daughters of Delhi and help in bringing prosperity into the city, adding that the country is now moving towards women-led development.
यदि दिल्ली की महिलाएं सुरक्षित, शिक्षित और आत्मनिर्भर होगी, समाज के हर क्षेत्र में आत्मविश्वास के साथ नेतृत्व प्रदान करेगी, तो पूरे देश में सकारात्मक संदेश जाएगा। इसीलिए दिल्ली को पूरे देश के सामने वुमेन लेड डेवलपमेंट का उदाहरण प्रस्तुत करना होगा। मैं दिल्ली की महिलाओं से अनुरोध करूंगी कि वे पूरे आत्मविश्वास, लगन और मेहनत से अपने जीवन में आगे बढ़े और समृद्ध दिल्ली के निर्माण में अपना योगदान दें।
And still to come here on DD Indian Newshour, oil prices soar and stocks fall in Asia on Monday after US-Israeli strikes on Iran. SpaceX launches fresh batch of Starlink satellites. And Lalit Serabat claims a bronze medal on the final day of the Mohamed Malo wrestling tournament in Albania.
Can the US launch a bombing campaign against Iran? The Philippines vessel suffered structural damage. The saga of child sexual abuse is the United States China's debt trap strategy. Truth is stranger than fiction. But sometimes hard to uncover. Trust us to tell the truth, unadulterated and pure, of every story that matters to you. You read between the lines, cut the clutter, and connect the dots to get you the full picture. Watch Connecting the Dots at these times with me, only on DD India.
You're watching DD India Newshour. I'm Mark Lynn. And amid the recent conflict in West Asia, oil prices have soared and stocks have fallen across the world, including in Asia on Monday. So oil prices have surged 9%, with Brent crude futures rising at 13% to $82.37 a barrel. Meanwhile, equity markets across Asia sank. In Japan, the benchmark Nikkei 225, it fell 1.35%. Meanwhile, the Taiwan Stock Exchange's capitalization weighted stock index declined 0.9%. US futures were also down more than 1%. Meanwhile, Shanghai edged up and Sydney was flat. While the strikes have ramped up geopolitical worries, gold climbed 2%. The impact has also affected India, with stock markets here, the benchmark indices, the Sensex and the Nifty, they continued to trade with deep cuts during afternoon trade on Monday. The Sensex was down by 2.26% at 79,451. And the Nifty was down about 564 points at 24,614. Rising geopolitical tensions involving US, Iran and Israel are driving a sharp uptick in gold prices as a hedge, silver as well, and crude prices, as we saw, as investors have been looking for safe havens and they are bracing for possible supply disruptions. Analysts warn of continued market volatility, with silver expected to outperform gold. Silver is expected to outperform gold amid tighter supply conditions and also shifting global trade dynamics.
Overall, we have seen gold silver prices has moved very sharply in today's session as geopolitical tension again arise. We have seen multiple targeted action has been taken on Iran, and on the reply side, Iran has also taken an action against neighboring countries, and because of that geopolitical tension or uncertainty index has gained, and resultant that we have seen gold, silver, crude are trading with a very strong move in today on MCX domestic market, where gold is up by around 3.5% up, which is trading near to 1,67,000, whereas silver is up by more than 4%, trading near to 2,94,000 level mark. Crude is up by 8%, that is very closer to 6,600 level. But overall, looking to this uncertainty, we expect gold might retest the new high on COMEX, which is 5,600 level mark, and for silver maybe a jump towards 110 level. On domestic side, definitely rupee weakness is going to be very severe, because up till now we have importing crude oil prices from Iran and Russia, but because of US sanction we have moved thoroughly towards US also. US is making sure that crude prices should stay in lower, but I think there is a technical breakout and uncertainty is there. Because of that, maybe Brent can test around 82 to 85 level mark, which will definitely pinch on Indian market.
SpaceX launched a Falcon 9 rocket from Florida's Cape Canaveral on Sunday night, sending 29 Starlink satellites into low Earth orbit as part of the Starlink 1041 mission. The first stage separated as planned and landed on the just read the instructions drone ship in the Atlantic Ocean, marking the booster's 26th flight and also another successful recovery for the company. The second stage ignited to carry the satellites into orbit. SpaceX later confirmed the satellites were successfully deployed, completing its 22nd Starlink mission of the year. Well, it's been 5 years since Tesla opened a gigafactory in Germany. And the US electric car maker, in fact, was at its peak and desperately needed the expansion in Europe. But more recently now, the company is seeing revenues drop. And the whole region is wondering about the future. Lars Holter with Deutsche Welle is with us. Lars, what's going on with Tesla?
Well, this week we'll see the election to the Tesla Workers' Council Board, and those are a lot more important than it sounds. First of all, because the US car makers has always had a difficult relationship with unions in general and has traditionally done everything in its power to keep them out of the factories. But even more so since this didn't work in Germany, a country with a historically strong auto business and also with historically strong union representation in said business. Now, Now, for the Workers' Council elections, there are 11 lists for employees to pick from. Some are pretty close, actually, to management and favored by Elon Musk and leadership in general. However, there's also the IG Metall, one of Germany's most storied and strongest unions. They do not currently have a majority at Tesla's plant in Grünheide, just outside Berlin here. And they never shall if you ask Elon Musk. He has sent a video message to workers, pretty much telling them that the very future of the plant and of course also the jobs there depends on the outcome of this week's election. He made it pretty clear that with a strong union trying to keep him in check, he doesn't see much of a future for the plant. So there is tremendous influence peddling ahead of these elections.
You're watching DD India Newshour. Let's get to the sports news now. And Lalit Sehrawat claimed the bronze medal, and this was on the final day of the Mohammed Malo wrestling tournament in Albania. He lifted India's tally to 7 medals. The Indian wrestler who won the bronze at the Under-23 Asian Championships in 2023 clinched the medal in the Greco-Roman 55 kg category in Tirana city. The 23-year-old sealed his first podium finish at the United World Wrestling Ranking Series event with a 9-0 win over Kazakhstan's Arsen Zuma. Sujit Kalkal also was India's only gold medalist at this tournament, and the next ranking series will be held in Mongolia, and this is from the 4th to the 7th of June. That's all we have in this edition of DD India Newshour. Let's know your thoughts on the news of the day. For those of you on the go, get the latest news and updates from India and across the world on the DD India mobile app. Available on both Android and iOS platforms. Scan the QR code and download it now. We'll be back with more news as it breaks here on DD India. My name is Mark Lin. From all of us here in Delhi, thank you very much for watching DD India Newshour. Namaskar.